what does shame even mean? Like these terms, like I just know I don't feel like myself. Like what's going on with me?
See, I think shame is a deeply internalized sense of being unworthy of good things.
How helpful do you think it is for people to say things like, I have a mental illness, or I am a depressed person, or I have anxiety?
For a moment, it gives you a sense of relief that you're not alone in dealing with something, and maybe you can relate with other people who are in it.
Sometimes out of naivety, anytime we take a step in the right direction, even though it is the right direction, almost what happens every single time is we just get knocked down hard.
The healing that can come, I guarantee you, is beyond what you can even imagine.
Acting on emotions as guides to truth. Stillness. Surrendering to what is. Seeking. Using my gifts with purpose. Light. This is the emotional blueprint.
James Webb. So you are officially like the first past client that I've had on the podcast. So the reason why we wanted to have you on is from the perspective of a therapist. It's like I show up and I'm witnessing people go through these scary, dark, life-changing experiences, and I'm just there. And I started seeing you actually when I was pretty newish. I remember when you first started coming in, like when you would come in, just the spirit in which you would come in just like commanded like attention. Like even if I wanted to be distracted, it's like there was like a seriousness and like a reverence, and like this is really important. I feel that with almost everybody, but there is definitely an added level of like, Corey, you need to like be dialed in. And it's just been so beautiful, man. What was that? Is 8 years later now?
7, almost exactly.
7, almost exactly.
Yeah.
So your story, I think, is going to be really powerful for people, man. And so let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. So start wherever you want to, and then, we're just going to kind of let it guide us, and whatever comes up is what we're supposed to share.
I served an LDS mission. I went to England, and before that, my life was like good, like normal, excited. Saw a lot of opportunity and potential, and just kind of went through it. And then was really excited to go on a mission. That was a big part of my upbringing. And then just got clobbered while I was out there. I was like, in retrospect, I think the way to say it was just like not emotionally prepared, even if like there was spiritual preparation for what, like, just my sensitivity level to being in that environment, and had no idea what was going on. I didn't really have a conception of what mental health stuff was.
So you got like emotionally clobbered.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of anxiety.
I remember like the first day waking up in England, like thinking like I'm supposed to go talk to people about Jesus, and was just like my whole body was just like riddled with anxiety. And like I had known that emotion in the past, but not to this level.
Not to that level, yeah.
And like my methods for handling it were like, you just like I wasn't in such a structured environment with such like a specific task demanded of me, and like not the typical outlets that I'd had with family and friends and all those things.
It's like a religious military assignment, or religious / spiritual.
Yeah.
Like the standards are very high, the expectations are very high.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And the preparation is not sufficient for anyone, really.
right.
It's like the whole point is throw them in the water and see if they can swim. And in a lot of cases, that's just there's just not the guidance and wisdom in place always for particular people that experience just doesn't vibe with their makeup.
I feel like anytime this apply, like anytime someone's going into the military or like a mission for their church or anything like that, fresh out of high school, it's like it seems critical that there needs to be some kind of emotional prep, like how to deal, what it means when you feel anxious or shame. But it's like there's still nothing like that.
Yeah.
It's like here you go.
Yeah, and it's kind of an atmosphere in which all the solutions are like spiritual religious
You
solutions.
just need to pray more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
missing an added dimension that I would have to learn about later.
Right. So you're just getting clobbered.
Yeah, it was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
Too much too soon. And I was really willing and excited. Like I believed it was something I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stuck around for a long time. And as you know, if you are not dealing with negative emotion, if you don't have the skills to, it just accumulates.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just starts to kind of like cause chaos in your mind and your body.
Mm-hmm.
So after a year, I came home and kind of began a journey of figuring out what the heck just happened and like feeling as though like all of the hopes and dreams I had for life before and like as part of this whole experience were like totally outside my reach and not sure what to do, how to rebuild.
Is there like a darkness when you got back for you?
Yeah,
A sense of like failure or disappointment?
It's really interesting because I think that's really common for this. I didn't feel like I had failed because I knew I had tried so hard. It stayed
Like
out
I
there.
gave it everything I could.
Stayed out there way longer than like wisdom should have dictated. I just didn't know. Like literally, like I was out for 365 days and I was out there for like 364 too long. But then it kind of just so like I came home and there was all that mental pain going on. But I had like been in the spiritual texts and in the spiritual mindset. So it was just like I just saw it as like my duty to like solve this problem that was now on my doorstep and destroying me.
Gotcha. So you come home and then you're trying to figure out like what just happened. Like I didn't know this intense like anxiety, shame.
Yes, but I didn't know what that even was.
Right.
I didn't even really know what anxiety was. I just called it depression.
Gotcha.
That was the word that was available to me to describe this type of thing.
Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about depression for a second, because what you just said, I think, is so relatable for people. It's like, what does shame even mean? Like these terms, like I just know I don't feel like myself. Like what's going on with me? And depression is often, I'd say most often, a combination of shame and some kind of sadness or hopelessness. And these are very heavy emotions. Shame, probably one of the heaviest. And so what's shame? It's not just a belief system. It's a feeling that I'm just not measuring up, or that there's something like deeply flawed with who I am. There's something wrong with me. That narrative can take on a lot of different paths, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think shame is a deeply internalized sense of being unworthy of good things.
Let's Can you say that again? That is like,
Yeah.
I love that definition.
So shame is a deep sense that you are unworthy of good things
Of good
coming to you.
things. I don't deserve good
Mhm.
things.
Mm-hmm. And if it happens, it's just like the mercy of chance.
Right.
And it's just gonna kind of sweep away
you
again.
discount it.
Yeah. And so it's pretty tied to hopelessness. And so I would say that's where, yeah, kind of the combo there creates depression.
Mm.
Um,
Because the shame, like, okay, there's good things that are, to some degree we can recognize any good things that are happening. Look, I've got food. I'm able to eat. I'm able to drink. I have shelter. There's good things around us, almost no matter our circumstance. But if we can't actually integrate that or feel that,
mm-hmm.
and it's almost like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I should be feeling happy, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. Everyone else seems to be feeling good, but I'm not. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so it starts to create. I've seen for a lot of people this, like, I'm flawed in some way. Like, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you necessarily felt that way, but I just think over time, shame just really gets like a deep root for people.
I feel like an important thing to look at here, like, so for my language, it's Christian language, but that's just how I see it. But I think it can speak more broadly. So I'll use terms God, but that can be, however you see like this higher transcendent power.
Yeah, run that through your own filter, listeners, of whatever is comfortable for you. We don't want anyone to feel dealt out of any conversation, but yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's just easiest
Sure.
for how I see it. So I think an interesting thing for my perspective, like I looked at it as there is a God, and I was like trying to be in line with this God, and then so much negative, painful, hurtful events happened while doing that. And so that must mean like one of two things. Like either I'm unworthy of the good things that can come from like higher divinity, God, or like this is like some like test. And I think definitely both of those happen for me.
It's really powerful what you're saying, because you said earlier, like, I felt like this is what I was supposed to do, was to go on a mission, right?
Yeah.
You had that
that was
like
my
you had that
conviction.
alignment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very interested now if you believe that was actually, like, if you were in alignment or you weren't. But what's interesting is, we've been talking a lot about the hero's journey, and how the hero's journey in 2025 has become really an inward journey. Because why? Well, I love what he talks about, Robert Johnson talks about in the book he says, well, there's just like, guys, there seems to be a shortage of castles to storm and dragons to slay. So if you really want to be this hero, it has to start with you, and you taking on this burden of becoming whole, so that you have more to give. So your part of the hero's journey of going inward started then, or when you got back. And it's like, anytime we, sometimes out of naivety, anytime we take a step in the right direction, even though it is the right direction, almost what happens every single time is we just get knocked down hard. It's like this, stepping into this unknown world, we fall straight into a pothole, and we're sinking into the quicksand of life. And this is what life's really like. Like, life's really this hard. It's like it sucks. And so it's so normal for people to be like, did I make the wrong decision? Am I
Unworthy, shame.
Totally.
Yeah, so I guess along the theme of a hero's journey, it was just like I took on myself this responsibility to figure out if I could take my life back, so to speak, because I was in this really dark place. And what things had brought me happiness before. It's just like there was just the wall. I think depression is a massive sense of loss.
Loss of self.
Yeah, loss of self. There's a huge disconnect. Kind of like a dissociation, a trauma. Like it's all kind of the same thing as I see it, but you feel like separated and lost from just like what was once a simple pleasures of life and just usual like confidence and those types of things. And then like you're like looking at the top of looking at this huge mountain in front of you that you've got to climb, and you're like, what is this? Like, I didn't know this is what life can become.
And I think what's so painful for people that struggle with depression is this visual that comes to my mind is like being on the ocean, being on the beach, and you're looking at the ocean and you're seeing this giant tsunami wave just building. And people that struggle with depression, they can almost feel it begin to come on. And then there's a lot of suffering just with that. And then this giant wave comes and just pulls you out to the sea. And people often ask the question, like Corey or whoever, like, when I'm depressed, how do I get out of that? And it's like, there's really nothing you can do. It's like you have to wait till that ocean wave spits you back on the beach. Then when you're a little bit more grounded, then that's when but to some degree, you have to write it out. And it's really tough.
Yeah. And my understanding of it now, some 10 years later, is, to continue the analogy, it's like that wave washed me over and like I hit a bunch of rocks, and like I wouldn't know what damage had been done that needed to be healed for a long time. Like deep stuff. Because when you enter into something like that, coming just right out of basically childhood, adolescence, where you don't really know yourself very well, like you're just not aware of like a lot of layers of your being and like your psyche or whatever that are going to be impacted by these sort of early life experiences.
I want to go back to your story, man. I just feel like it's important to maybe share this one thing. It's like, okay, when you are depressed, people giving you advice like just go exercise or work out or go, whatever. It can actually make it worse because you're it's like your emotions have shut off. It's like I imagine a power switch, and it's like emotional power down. Okay, and so why don't I have the motivation to do anything like work out or whatever? It's because like motivation comes from there has to be some positive emotion driving that, like a little bit of hope, excitement, was whatever. Some positive feeling has to be there for you to have. Motivation is drawing upon what's in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're very depressed, it's like there's nothing there.
Yeah,
it's numb.
Yeah, I think it confuses people who haven't experienced it deeply, because all the things that work to boost your mood, they just like you said, they go offline. Like nothing does anything.
It's like I could work out or I could have a meaningful conversation, but it's not gonna. I'm numb.
Yeah,
it's off.
Yeah. You're not gonna get
no Wi-Fi.
You're not gonna get the boost.
Yep. And so that's why people don't do anything when they're depressed. It makes sense. I just want to, this is what feels important is, so what can you do if you know someone that's struggling with depression? What can you do to possibly help them? One of the worst things that you could do is text them and say, how are you feeling? It's like, still sad, still depressed. It's almost like a reminder of their state that they're really unhappy about. One of the things that can be really helpful is to try to do something that just requires no effort on their end. For example, something like, hey, I just want to come over and watch a movie. You don't have to say anything. I'm going to bring dinner. There's no pressure to say anything. I just want to be with you. Just them feeling like that they don't have to do anything. Like it's like this unconditional kind of I still know you, I still see you, I still love you type of thing. But anytime we start to require energy on their part, it's like that can just be that can be harder for them, make it worse sometimes. So just an idea or thought on that. This all is what was coming up for me. So any other thoughts, though, man, on depression?
Depression's hard because, like you're saying, there's no like immediate thing someone can do to solve it for you. Kind of have to look at it as like this person has like entered into this like dark space, and to some degree they're the only one that can find their way out of it.
For
And
sure.
like that might last a lot longer than like from the outside you want it to, or understand why it's going on that long. And for the person who's in it, I can, promise you it's very long. But
Yeah, yeah. And so this began to happen for you.
yeah, I would say like there was the beginnings of it while I was on my LDS mission, and then from when I got back, it pretty much like, even though I was back in normal life, had friends, had family, had things to do, it actually just got a lot worse. The hardest years of my life were definitely those next 3 or so.
After you got back.
Yeah. So that was a period. It's like even hard sometimes to remember, because it's such a, like, your mind's just not right. And yeah, so I the way I approached it was, really like approached the the culture I was a part of and what tools they had available. We were trying to solve that. My family was really involved, and we went with the typical stuff. I found a therapist, and also began going to a psychiatrist and taking medicine, and would just kind of run that experiment for the next little while, while starting up college, which eventually I dropped out of, and didn't work. I tried a bunch of medications, took that really seriously. That was kind of my paradigm at the time, was like, okay, like, similar to how someone might be born with a physical illness, I'm born with a mental illness, and this is when it showed up. And like my brain just, this is how it works. Like it doesn't produce the right things. And then supposedly these medications can kind of help it produce that. And I tried a bunch of those. And that was, as I understood it, the way to go.
Let me ask you a question. How helpful do you think it is for people to say things like, I have a mental illness, or I am a depressed person, or I have anxiety? How helpful do you think it is for people to adopt these labels?
I think there's a small utility in it, because for a moment it gives you a sense of relief that you're not alone in dealing with something, and maybe you can relate with other people who are in it. And that's about as far as it goes.
Like that's the only benefit.
Yeah, it like puts you in the track, like something needs to be fixed, and there's other people who have experienced this.
Struggle with it. Right. And then obviously on the downside, it's like people can start to believe this is part of my identity. This is like who I am. And I don't get me wrong, like it's
Yeah.
a snapshot. Like it's always easier to, when you get out of depression and you've overcome that, to be like, oh, like that actually wasn't who I was. There was some emotional factors going on, maybe some spiritual things going on.
Yeah, I'll say this, and coming from in the past where it was like that's the only way I could understand it. Unfortunately, the kind of medical community and researchers around mental health, like, I'm just going to be as bold as I feel about this. They have no idea what
Mm,
these things are.
mm-hmm.
And again, like, there's some comfort in trying to categorize and classify and say this is that and this is that. And that's about as far as it goes. And this isn't to diminish how real symptoms are.
Right.
It's more just to say that the healing that can come, I guarantee you, is beyond what you can even imagine. And a big part of that step is to get outside the label.
What can we highlight from what you just said to give people hope that are like maybe a little bit deeper into depression or deeper into anxiety?
Yeah.
Um,
I'd
if
say, okay, I would just say, like, I'm not saying stop going to your psychiatrist and stop trying these things. Maybe that step comes at some point. It's less that. It's more,
but there's so much more outside of that,
yeah.
and it's a path that isn't as maybe clear.
I would say that somewhere, some part of you still feels whole, and you need to trust that that part can expand to the rest of you.
Beautiful. And that part of you that that is whole or that feels whole is your spirit.
Yeah. And when there's a disconnect from that, you kind of believe it's gone. And
Totally.
you are like, I'm in this prison of my brain not working right. And time and time again, even in the world of science, when they're trying to look at this, that way it like blows them away how far people can come, and how much they can heal, even from some of the scarier labels that we have.
It's just so cool to have it from a client, like your own personal experience perspective. And in line with what you're saying from a therapist perspective, I am a big advocate for therapy. So therapists are supposed to be, quote, the experts on how to help people overcome depression and anxiety. Even most of them have no idea. And I love what you said is, I think we're getting there, but basically what's really coming up for me is, James, I have never seen someone overcome deeper depression or deeper anxiety without some kind of a spiritual connection and focus in their life, some kind of spiritual intervention and path that is not the medical path. Like that is meant to perhaps play a role to help you find stability. The whole point of taking medicine, though, and some of these medical interventions, even including a therapist at times, is hopefully to help you have some stability so that you then can let go of what you need to or connect the way you need to. And that's where stuff really starts to, I'm sure we're going to get there in your story, but
Yeah, I think on this point, I would just say, like the word I always used was depression, but like it went deeper into some of the other symptoms of these, we have all these manuals for diagnosing these things. And the thing I just hopefully, people listening can feel from me is that, like, I've been there, and no matter what you might be fearing, it's not always a life sentence, which I never would have believed at that time.
do you feel comfortable sharing just like an experience? Because in some ways you went through some of the darkest or worst parts of the medical interventions right?
Yeah.
So just maybe
Yeah.
touching on that a little bit and connecting that to what you just said, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, sure. So after this 3 years after my LDS mission, I I tried all these medications, and I was kind of at a point where I was becoming very suicidal because I just didn't see anything adding much help. I dropped out of school, moved back home, and kind of felt like I did what I knew how to do. I did the things that you're supposed to do. I went to therapy, and like I didn't just do them, I took them really seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, my psychiatrist at the time said, like, okay, here's like an extreme measure. Let's do electroconvulsive therapy, or ECTs. And I did 20 of these treatments where you are put under anesthesia and they, I don't know, they run electricity through your brain or something.
They shock
Yeah.
your brain.
They kill
with
your
lightning
neurons.
bolts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
which is crazy.
so I did that, and it was
Seems
just
like
like,
such an archaic. By the way, I think in 2025 that is now like, I don't know if that's against the, but that is like very.
no, they're still doing it.
They still do
They're
it.
still
I know they
doing
still do it, but
Yeah.
as far as the opinion of the larger community, it's
Yeah.
from when you did it. It's like, don't even think about
Yeah.
doing that.
And I'm not against, like, we'll maybe get into it. Like, there's other medical things that assist, but this one was not the right one. And I lost a ton of memory from that. I lost a lot of working cognitive abilities, which just like compounded the entire thing because I had this whole sense of like losing my potential in life, and then like my intellectual abilities and ability to do school just tanked.
Wow,
And
that'd be so hard, man.
yeah, that was
It's like this feeling of like I'm losing everything.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
A
Wow.
funny aspect of that is eventually I became a little grateful to have lost a lot of my memory, because I lost memory of these horrible years of my life. But you gotta look at the silver lining, right?
Thanks, ECT.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So and interestingly, they worked for a little bit, and then they
Right.
they stopped working, and I tanked.
Right.
And so that had been like 4 years of just like very young man without people around him who understood these experiences to really guide him, and just my family and friends being so loving and caring and doing their best to assist me, but nothing working. And at that point, I remember very specifically, I believe in God, and at that time, that belief was pretty low. But I was like, I'm gonna ask for a miracle. It's all I can. That's it. I mean, like, I just prayed and said, even if this was something I was supposed to go through or whatever, like, I'm done.
Right. You have to do something now.
Yeah, I was like,
Basically.
take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic. Sometimes people use that intervention way too early.
Yeah.
You, I feel like, actually used it
Probably a little too late.
Appropriately.
Yeah.
Or maybe too late. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that, and that was a couple months later. I met Corey, this guy.
Which is no correlation to that prayer.
Yeah, it 100% is. And that was when things started to really change, because I remember I came in and I was just kind of like, well, I'll try therapy again. I hadn't been for a little bit, and I had to, try something. The thing that I will never forget is that for the first time since this whole thing had kind of happened to me, I'm sitting across from someone who's listening intently and caring and also eating peanuts. And you looked at me in a way that you saw so much more possible. I had gone to all these experts, had like done the research I could, and like, tried all these things that from this world of really from these institutions of the medical world and the religious institutions I was part of. Like, I had tried all their solutions and was worse than when I started. And for the first time, someone just had the confidence that things can change. unquestioningly.
What's so cool about that, man, is it's like all these times that we met 7 years ago are like flooding back. Because, like I said at the beginning, is like I really feel like your prayer was answered, not necessarily have anything to do with me, but because I felt this. There's just some people that come in that, as a therapist, you just connect more with. And obviously, that, like, I just thought you were cool. I'm like, oh, this guy's a stud. But like I said, it was this very real spiritual, like, you, like, you need to be present. You need to be like, it was this added level of like, this is really, really important. Like I said, I feel that for everyone to some degree. There was an added level of that. And I remember, I think I might have told you this, but it was so cool as we began to meet because some of the things that we were talking about and some of the things that you were saying and that I was saying, I didn't know any of those things until you came in. And this was really the beginning. I think the seeds were growing in me and my own personal journey, but this was really the seeds for me of like, if you are still and if you are in the moment and you are seeking God or truth, it will come through you, especially if someone really important needs to hear it. And I've always been so grateful for you, for that. It was you and many others, but you really started to, and dude, honestly, that's changed my life. With my wife and my kids, like being able to like, oh, like my wife's pretty upset. Stillness is the answer. God or your spirit will help you know what to say, what to do. Like you really started to helping me recognize where the true source of like inspiration comes from. And you never told me that about this prayer.
Mm-hmm.
It was answered through the feeling of that I think we both had of like of this is important and this is gonna work and there's hope. Like failure's not. I remember feeling this for you. Like this will not and cannot fail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's no way. Like the only way it fails is if you just stop trying. And you're James Webb. You're not going to just stop. You're not just going to throw in the towel.
No, yeah, I totally. Yeah, and I guess I would say to listeners who are examining their own relationships with their therapist or just the people they go to for help, I would say that don't settle for someone who doesn't believe that you can really get better. Someone whose goal is to get you out the door and onto the life that you deserve, and they have that confidence because they've seen it happen, and that's what I had felt. Just like again, like feeling like I was trapped in this prison of my mind, and like this diagnosis that was gonna control the rest of my life. Like what I needed to hear at that moment was almost a casual "you're fine," and that's like what was provided. And it really did, like it did make the difference. And I think there was another thing is, it's funny, like you go to therapy, you hear skills, you go practice it, and I think that's a big part of it. But I think there's a way bigger part there of just like the spiritual presence of the person who's teaching and that of the person who's learning.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what facilitates like the true deep learning, is like that the attitude of your inner being. Because when I reflected on the I think 3 months that I saw you, like we were done after 3 months,
Yeah.
or something like that. I just remember like the only way I could describe it is like you held up the symbols of truth that like my soul needed to connect with to believe in light again.
So honored to be a part of that.
Yeah.
You're kind of blowing my mind, man, on some of these things that you're saying. We have to talk about this more. This what you said about what's perhaps the most important thing about seeking a mentor or seeking a guide is what is the spiritual presence of the teacher? And then you as the student, where are you at spiritually?
Mm-hmm.
So we should talk about that. Let's talk about the teacher first, because I think if the spiritual presence is there with the teacher, they can obviously help you as the student to find your spiritual path or to feel more connected. That's really the most important role, I believe, of any mentor, regardless if it's business. And it sucks because in the corporate world, it's like all this stuff is not allowed. You know, they don't go there, and I understand it, whatever. But how can somebody that's wanting to seek a guide or find a good mentor, therapist, whatever that guide is, how can somebody tell if the teacher is um, spiritually like, I don't know, what's the best way to say it, has spiritual presence to them?
Yeah. I would say like from like a practical rule of thumb, there's a quote and I can't think of who says this, but um basically don't take advice from someone who's not living a life you would want to live. In that same sense, like narrowing it down, like don't don't sell yourself short on the mentors you're going to seek with people who haven't actually figured out the things that you're trying to figure out. That's not like to diminish those people. They're just in their own path and their own learning curve and their own efforts. Everyone who's studying mental health and therapy is trying to figure it out for their own mental health and therapy, like 100%. And that journey is to some degree lifelong. And you want to find someone who's like reached those plateaus that like can really like help you up. And I mean, from that, yeah.
That's a good thought. So what's interesting about our experience is you didn't know anything about me. You didn't know anything about I think I was single at the time.
Yeah.
I for sure was.
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was single. Just some single dude rolling in wearing Vans, like you said. How did you really didn't know anything about me?
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe what I just said applies more to people who are like have been to multiple people and they're kind of in the path.
Right.
And if you're just starting out, I would say like, yeah, a thing that you had said earlier is like no one really gets there without some sort of spiritual connection. And I feel like I've like put both hats on quite a bit in my life, like approach things from a very spiritual perspective and then approach things from a very like intellectual, like thinking perspective. And luckily, like I know this is the direction of the podcast, so like we don't have to like mince words here. Like it is about this fact. Like if you go deep into the world of people who heal their trauma, there's the ones that don't submit to the spiritual path. There's just kind of a cap on how far it can really go.
100%.
That doesn't come from like a moral, like it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just like at least for me, there was a fear to dive into it in that way, because in how I understood it, that's kind of what had screwed my life up in the first place, was like spirituality. So it was like, let's solve this with like the tools of the rational man, the science and all that stuff. And like, some of it played its part, but it's just like the bottom rungs on a ladder that eventually like you gotta exercise the courage to go above. And you might feel that fear that you're gonna fall, and you're going to be disappointed in God or divinity again, like you were when the pain came.
I love what you were saying. You were talking about however you want to spin it. If you're just not open to spirituality, whatever that looks like, we're going to talk more about what that looks like and some cool options for that perhaps for people. But if you're just not open to spirituality, there is a cap on how much progress you can make emotionally or mental health wise or relationally.
If the way you're looking at it is like spirituality is kind of this like esoteric thing that maybe you deal with a few times in life, but like life is mostly about like your physical needs and your emotional needs and mental needs, those things result are like downstream of your spirituality. So all your other type of health is like the spirituality is at the core of it and then bleeds into everything else. And like they're discovering this in the study of trauma, that like deep rooted childhood pains are the cause of so many physical symptoms and problems. And you could say those are like just psychological, but anyone who actually grapples with them inevitably talks about them in like a spiritual way.
Well, it just reminds me like we were first a spirit that then entered into the body. So like the origin of who we are is first spirit, second brain, body. And so it makes sense in that context. And I think it's like let's maybe think of like I know it's hard to define spirituality, but maybe the question is like why is that true, that my progress perhaps with anything that actually matters in life is capped without some kind of personal spiritual focus?
I think, and you can look at this as just like a I don't know, a mythology or a framework for how I look at it, and like you can put your own on it, but like there's some reason why we exist, and you can spend a lot of time in a maze of thinking that reason is just to like live out the goals that you see in your culture and find that type of satisfaction. But we also know at a deep level those things, and we can see it all the time, those things don't really work because people keep going after them even when they've seemingly got it. And what that really speaks to is that like, you know, whatever is your deeper being has a purpose here, and unless you're trying to align with that purpose in the way you're living, it's never going to scratch the deeper itch. Everything's just going to be a little bit off if you're not focusing on that centerpiece.
I couldn't agree more. So the question is like, why is it that my progress with perhaps anything that's meaningful is capped without some kind of individual spiritual focus? Like, well, why is that so important, and why is that true? Well, how much do you trust culture? How much do you trust your culture to provide the answers on how to have a better marriage? How much do you trust your culture to provide you with answers on how to find more meaning and purpose in your life? How much do you trust your culture to help you overcome depression? If you are not connected spiritually, you naturally are going to move towards the cultural norms. And your story is a perfect example of that. And guess what? Like, that doesn't work. The collective culture and collectively what people think, I promise, is not a valuable, reliable source for meaning and fulfillment in your life. So the spirituality is it's an opening. I think the best word to describe spirituality, in my opinion, is like an openness to the source, whether that's God, your own spirit. There's a lot there. it's the ancient wisdom that transcends um, current cultural beliefs. And
Yeah.
I think especially in 2025, I think maybe, I don't know, man, you would probably know this better than me, but maybe 2000 years ago, the cultural beliefs at the time maybe were pretty um, good and helpful for people. But in 2025, I know for sure, if you align your morals and your belief system with the current cultural beliefs, later, you are going to witness the disintegration of your life over time.
Yeah.
Joseph Campbell talked about this, and we quote this every podcast.
Good.
He
Good.
talks about this in his book. You used to look out the window and see flowers, but now you look out the window and you see a wasteland of dry stones.
Mm,
He's referring to what happens when we are not responding to the call or listening to this deeper source. That's really what responding to the call is being willing to have God or this great hand be your mentor. Anyways, I could go off on this, but I just think that's the choice people are making when they don't realize they're making that choice. Am I aligned with cultural views and beliefs and morals, or am I finding a higher?
yeah, I think it's why in a lot of these great stories there's this like peeling off of the hero, so to speak, from like their early conditioning or development or community, and then they come back and reintegrate what they found in that, and that's really beautiful. But the reason that they go on that journey for their own self and for the community they're part of, we're part of groups we care about, is ultimately the institutions that exist in culture. We first think they're there to hold up truth and to know the answers.
We assume that.
Yeah.
Or we're taught that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, actually, those institutions are just a constellation of all the fear of the people that created them. I'm trying to think of another way to say that. The establishments that are supposedly solving problems, or the way that you can go find your satisfaction, are really just a reflection of all the dissatisfaction of the people that make them up.
Wow. Can you say that again? The satisfaction.
Yeah, if you're going out to these,
That's powerful.
like these cultural ways you think you're going to find happiness, you're actually looking for water in the desert. You're looking where people have made these false images to their satisfaction because they're so deeply dissatisfied.
Right. This is what Christ talked about when he said, he specifically was talking about his words, but he said, whosoever heareth my words and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man who built his house upon a rock. Okay. The rock is a symbol of something constant and true, and what has always been constant and always been true throughout all time. That is where we want to build our house, not on this sandy foundation, which he refers to, which is if we don't listen to this ancient truth, that's the wisdom of man changes all throughout time, and to some degree maybe it gets better, but in the ways that it really matters, it seems to be getting worse, and so spirituality is the way to access truth that has always been there and will always be there. And that's where you want to build your house on.
Yeah, it's really, I totally agree. It's really, you're never going to find outside of yourself those things you have to go within to find, of course. And everything you're looking for is within. It's in this inner journey. And like in my life, I tried looking in outside of myself for it. And to some degree, of course, you need that. You need to find mentors and teachers and things outside of you, but all they really do is point you back to yourself, the good ones.
Right. So
They
that's like
help facilitate it.
that's like full circle going back to the question, like, what can I look for in a good mentor or in a good guide? You mentioned somebody that's spiritually present. Okay, what does that actually mean and look like? I think on an application level, when I leave my meeting or session with this guide, uh, is my mind expanding? Am I feeling hope? Am I feeling lighter? Am I feeling enlightened? Whatever words you want to use, you shouldn't just be yeah, it's maybe, as I'm starting to describe it, it's maybe harder to describe, but you should be leaving feeling like there's something's opening for you, I guess is
Mhm.
maybe a better way to
Mhm.
say it. And that's someone that I think is spiritually a spiritual guide for you. This has been a theme this has been a theme that has been emerging in the podcast, like totally unplanned, which is Anna shared her story, you're sharing your story, and some other people that have basically said, like, if you're going to therapy, if you're going to a guide that is just not spiritually, that's closed off, like, basically it's not going to work. And yeah, so we've been talking about that.
What's really cool is when people go within, they take on this mantle of this journey of dealing with the big dragon that popped up in their life. They go out and they learn things, and then actually they go and they bring them back to the community.
The
That
magic elixir.
Yeah, they bring it back to that original community, and it gives it new life. That maybe some of those older, cultural things that have lost their magic, it reinvigorates that, and it blesses kind of the whole. So the individual has this reciprocal relationship with the whole. We heal together in a big way, which is like exactly what's happening with this podcast. It's the point of people who have found their inner light to go share it.
Totally. I remember when we broke from therapy, and I think it was probably like 6 years later, texted you and said, hey, or you texted me and you were like, hey, you were just saying some really cool and nice things, like, you've helped me out a lot. I never thought a guy who ate peanuts and wore Vans would actually be able to to help me. But and I said, hey, like, I don't think it was a coincidence you reached out, because I want you to come on this retreat that we're doing. And you came on this McCall retreat, and it was so beautiful, man, to see you use your gifts. And it just, referencing this to the hero's journey, it's like, okay, this was when you clearly were on this path of almost slaying the dragon, or have, and bringing that back and then sharing that with others. We don't just heal for us. It's important maybe it's fine to have that belief initially, because at first it is just for you. Like, when you're on that path, Mother Nature herself supports that. Like, it's just for you. But then it's so beautiful how I love to see this, like, flowering in people, where it's like, oh my gosh, like, I've learned some of these secrets of life on this journey, the hero's journey, the healing journey. Like, I've learned some secrets, and so many people that they don't know about this. And so it's just such a beautiful transition. What is the impact that healing and letting go of your pain has? Well, your what replaces that pain is just a ton of, like, compassion and this desire to, like, alleviate collective suffering. Whether that's just in your own home or on a larger scale in your community, it's whatever your calling is. But Dude, I just, there's nothing that fills me with more joy than seeing that happen in my own life, but more importantly, like seeing that like in your life and seeing that in many people's life. It's just special. Very special. We're getting a little ahead of your story, but it's just been so cool, man. I'm just so proud of you, man. It's so cool. Like, you have arrived.
If you have benefited from this podcast in any way, it would mean the world to us to have you subscribe, to allow us to keep it going and bring on inspirational human beings.